Okay, welcome to Roadmap, Autotrader UK's product and tech podcast. So, actually, the sun was shining when I wrote this notes, but it's definitely not raining. But we're going for a little bit of a creative vibe today, so I'm hoping you're feeling creative. So I'm joined by the one and only Pete F. Or is it? No, it's not the one and only. There's two Pete Fs. So Pete Fletcher. I'm going to say their nicknames.
Pete Fletcher,
yeah,
fine.
Pete Fletcher, PF, Big Pete, creative director.
That's correct.
Have you ever been called Big Pete before, Pete?
No, my dad's called Pete as well, so I was always Little Pete growing up.
Love
so
it.
I quite like it.
See, I get all the
Petes.
but that's because I'm little. So, and George Burton. George, you are a portfolio design lead. That's just a bit of a mouthful.
Yes, and needs explaining.
Yeah. So, today we're going to be chatting all things creative. Well, we're going to focus down on Creative Studio. So I'm assuming in the title, Creative Studio is creative. But before we get into what Creative Studio is, I wouldn't mind a bit of a ins and outs of who you two are, how you ended up at Autotrader, and then how you found yourselves in Creative Studio. And then we'll jump into what actually is Creative Studio. That's good?
Sure. I don't mind jumping in. So yeah, I'm George. I have been at Autotrader for about 5 years. I suppose why it's poignant that I'm in this conversation, I've been in and around creative teams for probably the past 15 years of my career.
15 or 50?
15.
15.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 15, like just to
15.
clarify. Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, my role as portfolio design lead actually sits within the product and tech team, and I suppose across all of the designers and creative people across the organization, I try and help to steer the best output. I try and connect it as much as I can to who we are as a brand and what that means.
Yeah.
So work, kind of horizontally. So it's more in a kind of a sponsorship role across Creative Studio.
Right.
So dip into kind of leads meetings and structures and people process and tooling bits to try and realize, because all team models are slightly different in Creative Studios when they're in-house.
Right.
Like they take different shapes and different, I suppose, skill sets to be able to deliver the work that's needed for that team. So we've been going through the process and understanding what that actually means.
Yeah. So in your full 5-year tenure, have you been involved in Creative Studio throughout, or is that like a newish thing in your
I would say,
house?
I don't think it was part of my job description when I joined, but I could see a need to lean in.
Right.
So you branch out and you just start to start to see where you can add value, and I could definitely add value to that team.
So what about yourself, Pete? I'm not going to go back into nicknames now. I've got that all off my chest. So
Cleared that up.
Yeah.
Yes, my background was agency, sort of over 10 years, agency background, marketing. This was my first in-house role,
Right.
first client-side role. Coming up to sort of 4 years now, so I was sort of a year behind George. I was brought into the Creative Studio team.
So you came straight in?
Straight in an art direction role, sort of the first, specialised discipline like that we'd look to bring in and see if we could show the value of that type of role and specific disciplines in the team at that time. And it's sort of been we'll dig into it more, I think, across today.
Well, I remember you joining Pete, because it was funny, because all of a sudden there's this new PF, and there's lots of Pete's, popular name. But then there was another PF, and I started getting invited to like a load of your induction meetings. And I was like, there were pretty senior people inviting me to talk about creative and direction. And I'm thinking, this is really interesting. I've never been tapped up for any of this type of stuff before. And then rocked up at a meeting, and then I remember, I'm not going to name who, was like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, you invited me, and they're like, oh, damn. And I was really excited, and then the disappointment of going, no one wants my input on creative or art direction is really, really disappointing.
Yeah, the fear when it's gone the other way and I've been invited to product and tech lead things, and I think, why am I being invited to this?
It's funny. It's funny. It's because it still comes up. People say Pete, and I'll go Pete F, and they go, yeah, Pete F, and I'm like thinking,
which one?
Is that me, or is that Pete Fletcher?
Yeah.
But So both being in and around Creative Studios, but this is something, I mean, again, I've been here ages, and I've probably got a perception of what Creative Studio is based on random requests that I've done into the team over the years, which might be like even an incarnation at 10 years ago. But if you were going to like sort of try and summarize what Creative Studio is, what it was, what it will be, like where would you even, so I'm a new starter today. Well, I'm not a new starter today, but you know, in theory. So what is Creative Studio?
I mean, yeah, try and sum it up easily. I mean, we are our in-house creative resource. The journey we've been on, it's probably easier to explain. They were more delivery focused. I think that was they've had different names. They were the creative delivery team, CDT. Still, every now and again, it gets referred to as that. You'll remember that, but the idea was to very much shift it more to a studio model and look at how we could deliver more end-to-end, more conceptualizing, sort of concept work and delivery things from start to finish where we can, and get more involved in varied projects and be seen less as a brief goes in with a clear output of what the stakeholder wants to more briefs at the very beginning of the foundations of that, and us being involved in sort of helping form those briefs. And
when did that like sort of change from the way you described like CDT and like delivering on a very specific brief where it's already formed? Is that a recent change, or is that something that's like been in the last few years?
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely been within the past 5 years. I think it's always about trying to align the creative studio resource against what the business and organization needs. And that is that you could see that we weren't realizing the potential of the team. And I think it just needed design direction. Like it felt slightly disconnected when you joined, and you felt like it was at a point where probably confidence in the team had been lost a little bit. And I think it was about how because some people were coming to brief solutionized and going like, I exactly want this type here and this image here and this, and you're not getting the best out of the people if you've got to that point. So it was about how do we start to add a little bit more direction, a little bit more structure? Because it was almost like an invisible process. Stuff was just thrown into this process, and it come out at the end almost like a ta-da moment, and that might not be right or wrong, and the confidence in how the work was produced. And so we've done a lot around like making the process more visible and bringing in a different tool to do that, and then starting to think about the steps within that creative process and the different disciplines and the different skills you would need, because we're not in a fully in-house service agency. Like you would have account managers that would help to shape the brief and build the relationship with the client, and you would, so wearing many hats as a creative studio team to try and, I suppose, manage that process and get the best work out at the end of it.
So is that, if you're going, I am fascinated by this. It's not just asking you for the sake of it, but so if I rocked out of AT and went somewhere else and then talked about a creative studio, is it like common language where there's common, not necessarily the ways of working, but common things that a successful creative studio is, whether that be in-house, out of house, agency, whatever. Is it? Like, so if it was in-house, like what are those like moment or building blocks of success to say like a great creative studio would have these kind of things? Is it like you say people mix? Is it skill mix? Is it the way they approach things? What are those common bits of magic dust that you always aim for?
I think the best teams, from my opinion, are the ones that have a very clear and defined understanding of who the organization is. Right. And then through the content that they create, they can really encapsulate that visually, or through motion, or through whatever discipline or different medium that is. Having that foundation, that footing, allows you to be bolder and braver and tell better stories and connect in different ways. The mix of around that will be different. A lot of it is around like having really good relationships, and different agencies are set up in different ways internally. Like some are like in a different building and like that objective ability to be disconnected from the organization. It gives you this, I suppose, this ability to look at the work differently. And some teams are like completely like sat on the same desk as you, maybe working in the internal agency team, but are just deeply embedded. But it is about the relationships. It is about the like understanding who the organization is and then really designing to that. And that's what makes it different.
And have you seen, Pete, from your perspective in the 4 years, have you seen like the skill mix change within Creative Studio?
Yeah.
One of the things
definitely.
I've noticed again, well, maybe it's because I get involved, is like it seemed to be video was a tiny sliver, and it feels like now when we talk about video and like the visual side of things, that just feels like it's very different than it used to be. But I don't know whether that was an intentional move and new people coming in, or we stumbled upon it or whatever.
Yeah, so over that 4 years, Studio was doubled in size, essentially. The team, I think we were about 10 when I joined, and we're sort of over 20 now. A big thing was, it was sort of, everyone was a generalist more. I think everyone was called a Creative Studio designer when we came in.
Yeah.
Very much they had different strengths within that, and people are stronger at certain things than others, but that wasn't clear, to the rest of the company, to stakeholders. Who should you work with when you're looking for a certain type of thing? There was designers and video producers doing that stuff. And it was kind of just thrown into the mix. So we've been working on sort of how we bring more clarity to that, and how we give people more sort of structure and focus to grow and develop in particular disciplines. So now we've got sort of art direction department, creative art workers, we've got video producers, we've got creative copywriters. So we're very much trying to set up as that studio model. I think a big difference is we're not an agency. I think, like George said, we're not trying to be an in-house agency. There was, I think, in-housing, there was a move to everybody want to be seen as an agency to try and get a bit more prominence and a bit more respect internally, and sort of, like you say, have their own section or their own sort of office and be separate from it. But there's definitely a shift now to move away from that. An agency maybe being seen as like a negative word, because it is like an us and them internally, and you want that collaboration with your stakeholders. You want to be one team. You want to be
and from you
together.
coming, I don't know, did you work in agency world as well, George? So what, coming in-house, what's the relationship? Because you said we don't do everything. So what is the relationship like with agencies? Is that a different relationship than maybe it used to be, or is it? Because maybe the way I'm thinking about it is when I worked more on the tech side, and you'd go out to other tech companies where you were doing some integration work. Sometimes there's a bit of not quite one-upmanship, but this place I used to work, but it was a bit like, oh, that's your technical view. We're bringing our technical view in. So is it with us growing the disciplines and the deepness and the quality of people? Do we find that it's friction with agencies, or does it bounce off nicely?
It depends on the agency, right? And I think you've definitely seen, I suppose, the way that agencies are approaching the work has evolved in my mind. And I think if you boil it down to and when I think about the best work that's happened through the work that I've been involved with, it's come through good relationships. Yeah. And whatever that good relationships looks like between the organization and the agency, you've got to find that and what works for you. But I think there's lots that are they should feel like an extension of your team. I think the moments of agencies have passed where it was, you'd give us a brief, we'd go away, and then ta-da, here's this thing at the end, and aren't we great? It's kind of long gone in my mind. I think, it feels like it's evolved for the better, I think.
So did you either of you work in an agent capacity with Autotrader before you joined Autotrader, or
no?
Because you're both from the
with
Northwest,
automotive, but not with Autotrader, specifically. But just to add on to, I suppose, George's point there, it's agency world is changing a lot at the minute, and that landscape, I think, because of the big shift to in-housing at the minute, and companies looking at how they can grow in-housing, talent moving in-house. And
is that a UK-wide shift, or is it a Northwest shift?
I think it's UK-wide that this seems to be happening.
I mean, it's multinational as well, I think.
Is it?
There's some stat that I was reading the other day around, I think it's 87% of large multinationals have got in-house agencies at this point, and it's set to increase, and that has increased. And you see, the demand for content, the demand for impactful content has risen since phones in pockets, right? The way that you connect with your audiences has grown in terms of its content, quantity. So to cut through and to manage that demand and meet that demand, there's been a drive and a need for in-house teams to be able to
so is that
realize that?
Because the two things I was going to ask there is, because I'm interested in the Northwest, because we're all from the Northwest, versus London. Not the versus, because it's not a competition, but where is when we look at where do people of this ilk and Creative Studio type skills, where they centred at? Are they distributed across the UK? And then the other thing I was going to ask about is that move to in-house, like you say, across the globe or whatever. Like, is that something we saw that trend and moved in that direction, or was it something we're organically doing already? And it's just like people have changed the tack. So first of all, when we look at other like-minded or creative businesses, whether in-house or agency, is there a lot of strength up in the Northwest, or do we find that it's a different market up here?
Yeah, I probably can't speak for the differences across the UK, but like there's definitely a lot of demand up here for in-housing. Yeah. I think it's the appetite from companies to see what they can do themselves, and I think it initially began, I think, with like cost saving in mind. I think in-housing was always seen as like, where can you save budget on things? What can we do in-house? Or what can the in-house team deliver? So that was probably
one of the shifts.
The big change is like actually in-house teams not being seen as like the cost-effective solution, and maybe being seen as actually they live and breathe the brand. They know the brand better than anybody else. If you've got talented people in them teams now, they can deliver work to a level. They've got relationships that you can't buy. You know, you can't tap into that. You're sat next to the stakeholder. Yeah. It's not, you've got a week to digest a brief. You've sent an email back asking questions and you've got to wait for an email back with answers. You can go and tap them on the shoulder.
So was that one of the reasons you came in-house then, Pete? That being much closer and getting that consistency and really getting deeper on a brand? Or was it just...
I think it was wanting to dig deep into a brand and really trying to contribute to the company you were working for rather than somebody else's company.
Totally. I mean, that's why I ended up joining, I think. Well, one of the reasons was I worked external, totally different type, but coming in-house and going, the thing you're doing contributes to the company you're working rather than contributing to another company. Even though I know we're a platform, but that type of, you can see the relationships you develop. They're not transient for 6 months and then gone.
It is I guess a strength of in-housing as well, that you know what that creative team is trying to do is working to your objectives are aligned to the business's objectives. It's not a negative, but an agency, for example, have got their own ambitions and what they're wanting to do, as well as delivering on your brief. So there's those two sort of sides to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, Autotrader is a business that can pivot quite quickly and things change and evolve, and there's nuanced differences in the way that things move forward, and you don't always feel and see those as an agency, so the things can be quite subtle but can end up in very different places at the end, and without that agility and adaptability to understand that and be part of those conversations every minute of every day, being in the office and being part of the organization, you miss context. The context is key, isn't it?
Without revealing any details, but have you got any scars from when you're in agency land where that you missed that subtlety? Where that you would, if you're in-house, that then you
talking about the howlers.
We're not even the howler, but like you say, there is subtle changes and the nuances and things change, and that ever so slight pivot that way, that like a month down the line, the gap of, if you're on that track, the gap's a lot bigger. So have you ever felt it when you were in agency land, that there is that bit where you've seen it and gone, you can see that how actually being co-located, working together, really understanding the nuances, that when there is that subtlety, you can go with the subtlety rather than like the ta-da moment, and then someone brings out a green frog and you're like, whoa, green is not the colour anymore, and definitely not amphibians.
There's those side of desk conversations that you might have just heard somebody in a leadership position mention something, or them have a disliking to something that won't be in a brief, and as an agency you can only be as good as the information that's in a brief. That's what you're delivering on.
I think less so from my time in agency. I think more so working with agencies, and then them just being slightly out of the loop when they deliver stuff, it's just not hitting the mark, and you understand why, and you thought, they've missed that key bit, that really key.
So what is there today, like, would you say, like ratio wise, how much still goes out to agency, if just in totality? Is it like 20%? Or is it like,
it's hard to quantify. I think
just ebbs and flows, does it, as need?
I think the amount, we used to have a lot of agencies. I think because every team had multiple agencies for different things, and we've really tried to kind of refine that. So when we're using agencies, we're using them for like specialisms, like what are we looking for from that agency, and got into the days, I think, where you just had like your lead agency that ran everything or did those things. It's like you're looking for a particular skill set or a particular thing from an agency that is a gap maybe you're missing internally, and how they can
what kind of
contribute.
thing would that be without like naming an agency, but like would that be like TV type stuff?
So
planning, for instance.
Yeah.
Like media planning, we wouldn't bring a planner internally and do that ourselves. Right. We'd always use an agency for that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that in terms of where we are on a journey and maturity of an in-house agency, we're in our infancy.
Yeah.
And we are still proving out the value. And the best work has to win through. It always has to win through. And we're at a point now where we're trying to pitch against those agencies. So we're not saying like you should just go with us because, like to Pete's point, we might be cheaper or we might be faster or whatever that reason might be. It's actually the best work should win out, and actually lads go head to head and just see, because there's lots of pros, but it should be who does the best work and who delivers the best work. And we found that there's moments where actually individuals are now coming to us with the brief and not giving it to agencies. So we're just on this journey of like the best work winning out and proving out the value.
Yeah, we've got really strong relationships with stakeholders, but it's about gaining creative
it's confidence and it's trust and it's the good work and
the opportunities you'll tend to get will initially be those things where there is lack of budget or there is turnaround time where they just need some support on something, and you've got to take those opportunities and not see them as a chance to do lesser work and just get something out because they'd be happy with it because they've had something, and you've got to deliver the best work you can. So it almost goes, if we can deliver that under these constraints, what could we do with more budget, more time, more support? And those opportunities are now starting to come through from those relationships.
So is there anything like over the last 2 years where you could point back and say that thing, like all 80 employees or a big portion would go recognise that event or whatever we did that was done by our own internal creative studio, whereas maybe 5 years ago that wouldn't have even been entertained.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose one of the first things that we worked on was the Together We Do More campaign. So this is where an agency actually did some of the creative work and we actually lent in more on the production to realise the campaign, and where we were probably going to be priced out from what the agency was going to demand to be able to produce that work. We were able to produce it at far less, but still match the quality. So there's moments of where you go at, and that's obviously it's been running for a few years now, and it felt like we were going to settle on the creative execution because of the finances, and actually we could then step in and still get the best work to win out. So we take different opportunities as they arise. So whether that is the conceptual work, whether it is the production work, whether it is both. But there are moments of
and I think we're at the stage now with things like people might have seen the toy car hunt that we've just run nationwide.
I was walking back this morning. And I was saying, I can't remember what town it said it was in this morning. It might be in Bristol. I don't know, but I was looking, I was like, I love stuff like this. Like,
so our social media team came to us with that idea and said, we've got this quite ambitious, large scale idea. There's a company, like an events company helping facilitate it, but what do we do with it, and how do we, what's the creative for it? What's the concept? How do we actually deliver all of this asset of, 1,000 cars being hidden across the UK and a daily live sort of Instagram competition, and working really closely with our marketing team on that, but not them briefing us delivering. We were so that's when we become the agency team on it, when we're working with them.
So stuff like, when we do like the conferences, like a mega day, which we did, which I know like we got early brief of some of the conceptual ideas. Is that the kind of thing that maybe years ago you creative studio would have been like doing a lot of execution, but not part of the idea generation? Because I think early you came in talking around like superpowers and stuff and some of the creative ideas. I think we had a session, it was like really interesting. Is that like one of the, like you'd say, is that where someone like me would see that's where the step change is? Because that was really early on, like months and months in advance of just some concept ideas and even the way we could bring things to life. Yeah.
And I suppose it's there where you bring the creative team in that process. So the further you think about that idea, the more the solutionized it's going to become. And actually, are we actually thinking about the opportunity within that brief? And I think bringing the creative studio team in earlier helps to realize those opportunities and helps to visualize those opportunities. But I think it's think it's probably part of that.
Yeah, with those close relationships with our stakeholders now, we have sight of their marketing calendars now. We're looking at when key events coming up, when key deliverables happen in the calendar, so we can help them form what the brief might be to that. We can look at what team and resource we might need on that, and we're more involved in helping them form those briefs rather than waiting for the brief to then just deliver on it.
So have you seen any, like, what with the organic move or the move to in-house, are there any like risks you're actively trying to mitigate? Like, I don't know whether there is any.
I mean, biting off more than you can chew is a massive risk. At times you've got to be sort of realistic and pragmatic about the approach you're taking. This is why we've talked about it as a road and a journey we're on. We're not by any means thinking, right, we just want to take everything in-house and think we can do that, because it would collapse and then you don't get them opportunities again. So you've got to take the right opportunities. You've got to do the work that you can deliver on, do a good job on that, and then keep building on that. So for me, the danger is if you all of a sudden say, we can deliver everything, and you haven't got to take maybe the technical people in-house to do that, or the capacity, or many reasons why you might not be able to, be pragmatic about that and what is the right approach to deliver and build that.
What about on the creativity side? Is there anything where, like, I was just thinking another analogy, because all I do is think about analogies in my world of, sometimes we were doing this thing on coaching the other day, and it was really interesting. We had an external come in and talk around like an approach to coaching. I think he worked for, or he'd previously been in an elite athlete program. And he was just talking around actually in coaching work, and just brought a subtle angle, different angle to it. It was like, oh my, that's like revelation. I want to come up with that with myself. So is there anything on the creativity side that, how do you keep creativity fresh? I mean, I'm not going to go there. Well, I mean,
that's
how do you keep it fresh?
It's a big loaded question. That I mean,
that's the people, isn't it?
It's the people, and it's the experiences, and it's the diversity of those people, and it's the way that you talk about work, the share work, and it's not just your work. It's like you've got to be tapped into the socially, culturally. Like you get inspiration from everywhere. Like listening to people on the bus and like
So is that where actually sales in video, but being actually really interested in video as your discipline, and looking what the trend of industry's doing, being really engaged in cinema. I remember we talked to Tom and Jordan about this, but and Tim about things they're really interested in. That means they're taking inspiration from lots of different avenues all the time, not just looking internally and only taking internal feedback. Because
some of the conversations you might have, or the briefs you might have, might not be unique. Like other brands, other organizations might get very similar briefing. You might land in a very similar place. So what differentiates your work from theirs? And it could be as simple as like tapping into specific capabilities within a platform or tech that's available, or a different filming technique, or a different animation technique. There's little bits of things you can add in that elevates it, and it's the thing that makes your content or your creative special. The idea itself obviously is a big part of that, but it's I think there's so many different, I suppose, I think options. It's just tapping into them.
Keep the people engaged as well in your team, and keep them like creatively motivated. There's the difference, I think, in-house to agency as well, is you tend to have people with a broader tee. So they'll have a specialism, they'll have a skill set they're good at, but you have the opportunity to do more varied things. You will cross over, creative art workers will cross over to doing illustration and animation. Art directors will be hands-on in delivering things. Videographers will be doing static graphics as well, and animation. Like, you will get involved in more than you may do if you were, say, HD, and this is what you're an art worker, you just deliver this. Like there is a broader.
Do you find it? I mean, like when you're in agency world, the people, because obviously with that, it's within the ecosystem of Autotrader, is broadening your horizons and stretching your career out and thinking about different things. In agency world, is it people just rotate? Not saying just, but there's a lot of rotation around agencies that.
There is, but it's also like they have a lot of contacts, and they'll outsource a lot of the work. So even if they've got an idea, executionally, they'll just partner with other people to produce that work. So if they want a specific illustration style or animation style, they'll go and find that somewhere else, as opposed to trying to do it in-house. And we're definitely not saying that our in-house agency is this, I suppose, we're still going to partner with agencies. We're not going to try and create this agency that's got every skill set in. It's unrealistic. And
is there inspiration you take, so not from a creative side, but like other creative studio models when you look in, again, UK industry or multinationally, whatever it might be, you go, oh, I really like the way they've approached it. It might not be the way we want to approach it, but it's a really good
I think
blend.
that's probably the bit that interests me the most,
right?
Is how do you set up teams to succeed within an organization? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And you can't find the answer to that anywhere else other than the organization you're in. And you can obviously, it asks questions of you. So when you look at, so I've looked a lot at the broadcast space. So like the BBC team and Sky team and Channel 4 team do really outstanding work, and the briefs are really interesting, but they've got skill sets that we'd never have. So they have trailer makers, and all they do is cut EastEnders with cliffhangers. There are little teasers of the episode. Like, that would never be something we would need. But the way that they set up as well, and the Specsavers team is really interesting, who do really good work. They're set up in their own building as an agency. They're almost that disconnection between the core business, whereas the BBC creative are sat at the end of the desk and are completely immersed into the BBC's culture. They're not this separate entity, and it's we don't know what's right for us, and we don't know what's going to produce the best work. But like, it feels unrealistic, and it feels like it's going to rub against the grain of Autotrader to even consider having an agency that's on its own floor that does its own stuff. It just doesn't feel right. So you instantly then go, how did the BBC creative do it? And what does success look like for those guys? And so it's interesting.
Yeah, and it's sort of interesting seeing the recognition that in-house teams are starting to get now on sort of top agency 10 lists. You know, that you see these come out every now and again. You're getting a couple of in-house creative teams. It's your big, Coca-Cola's or like you say, BBC's and teams like that. But now they're being classed in the same, or measured by the same, parameters, because they're working on
same
that level
awards
of work.
lists. So you've got in-house teams versus external agencies going for the same stuff, and it's really interesting. And I think it's also like, I've been in organizations where actually those internal teams have outsourced their skills to other organizations, and like they've produced work for the brands and businesses, because you've got this core skill set that actually in the troughs it's really interesting. Like, as soon as you start to do the really good quality work, do you become a paid for resource that other organizations can use? It's really interesting. I never came across it before.
Is there, like, if we were hooking up again, like in 18 months time, 2 years time, like whatever it might be, I'll probably be cancelled by then massively. But if we were talking again, what do you think in terms of the things you want to like move the dial on further forward from a creative studio?
I mean, there's one measurability for me that is sort of an aim. I want creative studio to become the creative team of choice for our marketers and our in-house different departments. That I want us to be seen as when they have a brief, consider us first, as they want to work with us first if it's right and the opportunity's there, not just when it feels like a fit for studio, or like you say, it's a quick turnaround, or we want to become and we're becoming that on certain projects and in certain areas. But by those teams, I'd love to become the creative team of choice before they look anywhere else.
So go to creative studio, understand the brief, and then it might be,
is it a job for us,
supplement with agency, or go agency, or it's full in-house, right? What about you, George?
I mean, the trajectory in I suppose the 5 years that I've been, leaning into creative studio, like it feels very different from where we were and where we started. And I think as long as we keep that trajectory and we start to prove out the value, and we start to do really good work, and we start to change hearts and minds, and to Pete's point, become that trusted choice. I'm happy with us just on that upward trajectory and just continuing to do what we're doing. There's no lofty end game, and like, we're not trying to manufacture something. It's just about, how do we support Autotrader to do the best work it possibly can do? And what does that actually look like? And where we end up with doing that is where we end up. There's no like master plan. I think it's just
we've cracked it moment. It's
you're not got the
keep going.
Cat.
Yes.
Just keep going with
it's opportunities. It's do good work, and let's just continue to do that.
Cool. Well, cheers for that. Time has absolutely flown by. I feel now realise why when I went to your meetings, Pete, that I was asked to leave very quickly. So because blew my mind. And I think it's really interesting, like you say, is that depth of skills and the broadness of what creative studio does in comparison to like the old days in CDT. But yeah, so I don't know whether you're at conferences or any meetups in there, because I know you creative folk, there's always something going on, whether it be some sort of meetup, but I'm sure people will be able to get in touch, whether it be like LinkedIn or internals on Slack to chat more.
We're always always looking to sort of skill share, speak to people in similar positions, and let's find out more.
We just need to hit up the right PTF. That's the thing,
that's
isn't
the
it?
one.
Otherwise, I'll completely blow any kudos that Creative Studio up. So, cheers for that, and I'll let you get back to your busy days. And don't forget to like it and subscribe on YouTube, and hit the notification button so you never miss another episode. That's you too as well. And follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we will be back with another episode soon.